Is it okay to correct someone else's kids? When is it okay? Does this make us Karens?
So over the weekend, I took my 2 boys to the pool, and a family came along, and they were super rowdy and loud, and they were screaming and fighting. They went to the storage unit that has all the pool toys, and they took like all the pool noodles that were in there, like 50 of them, threw them all into the pool. They were fighting about, oh, you took my noodle, you took my noodle. And it was driving me up the wall. I'm trying to have a nice, peaceful Sunday at the pool with my 2 boys.
I
don't want to hear. Yeah,
they're weapons.
Well, you're not a kid. You're not a kid. You're right.
They're the worst.
They definitely can be used as weapons.
Always.
But man, it was driving me crazy because I just want to have, my kids are 7 and 4, and I just want to have some daddy son time at the pool. I don't want to hear these loud kids yelling and screaming, and the parents, they were trying to correct their kids. They were saying, hey guys, keep it down, stop yelling, stop fighting, blah, blah, blah. And stop hitting the pool and stop hitting people with your noodle, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't working. They were not listening to their parents. So there came a point where I had enough. I was done. I was done hearing their screaming and their fighting. And so I used my outdoor voice, my manly dad voice.
Like, give it to me. What did you say?
I said, all right, guys, that's enough.
Oh, you did this thing?
Yeah, I did this thing, which means stop. Is there another hand gesture?
Very powerful. No other hand gestures.
Like, better watch out. Yeah. So I said, all right, guys, that's enough. Knock it off. And
I'm
then
scared
all
of
of a
you
sudden,
right now.
shh. It was quiet.
I don't blame them.
Nobody said a thing. The kids were quiet. The parents.
They weren't mad at you?
Well, I didn't look at them directly because I wasn't sure how they were going to react, but I didn't care. You know what? I was ready for it.
You were fed up.
Yeah, I was up to here with these kids, as my dad would say. So I looked at them in the corner of my eye.
Yes.
And I noticed they weren't looking at me. And I think they were okay with it. But I felt kind of bad for them at the same time because obviously they didn't have the skills as parents, or they weren't taught on how to get your kids to behave.
Well, we all have had those moments when our kids are not listening to us, though.
That's true. That's true.
We've all had those frustrating moments in public where you're just like, are you kidding me right now? Please.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, it happened the very next day when my wife came to the pool with us, and she told the boys repeatedly, all right, it's time to get out of the pool. And they weren't listening. And so again, I had to step in and I had to say, guess what, guys? When we get home, no tablets, no screen time, because you didn't listen to mommy when she told you to get out of the pool. So sometimes it takes consequences.
I know.
In order to get kids to behave, and these parents were not following through. In fact, later on, the dad kept telling one of their boys to stop hitting everybody with the pool noodle, or he's going to have to get out of the pool.
See, pool noodles. They need to
exactly. They need to be banned, right?
Yeah. No.
But
well,
eventually he kept doing it, and the dad said, "All right, that's it." Took the pool noodle away, but he didn't make the kid get out of the pool. So I think those kids had this perspective on, we can do whatever we want. Our parents aren't going to follow through. But you know what? Sometimes a local radio DJ may be at the pool who's not afraid to tell other kids
voice.
Right. He's not afraid to correct other people's kids.
Okay.
Now, my question is that okay? Did I step over the line? Is there some other strategy? Is there some other approach that I should have incorporated?
That would have been
should I have gone
calm
up to the parents and said, hey, do you need some help with your kids? That I think would have been very
awful.
insulting, right?
Or maybe just say, hey, I'd really appreciate it. I've got my younger kids here. I'd really appreciate it if you could get this to stop, or can we? But
they were trying.
But there's no. Otherwise,
there's no lifeguard.
If there was a lifeguard on duty, I would have gone to the lifeguard and be like, "Hey, can you do something about this?" So
we were at a gym. So I should have went to one of the staff at the gym and said, hey.
I don't know, should have. That would have been an option. But sometimes you're like in the moment and you're just like, cut it out, I'm done.
And it worked.
I know.
It was done. And maybe those parents learned something that day.
Oh, no.
On what. So you think. You've done that before, Amanda.
Oh,
don't look at me with these strange looks.
No,
oh, wow, I can't believe you did that.
Oh,
you do it.
I'm like, what do they call that? Monday morning quarterbacking or something? Like, that's totally what I'm doing with parenting. Well, I stepped in recently. And totally humiliated and embarrassed my kids. But they said that I was right for stepping in, but they were still embarrassed. They hate it when I do that. because we were at a crosswalk. I hate that intersection in Rockland by Dutch Bros. Love the Dutch Bros people, but it's like, it just makes it very, very busy. It's over on Sunset in Rockland, where they put the Dutch Bros like right in an intersection, and the line causes problems.
Okay.
And then, so we were at the stoplight there at the crosswalk, and there were some kids that had just left Dutch Bros and were crossing the street. And they had the right of way. They had a little walkie guy thing. It was their chance. But they just used it as an opportunity to like dance and fool around.
And this was a teenager. How old? You think maybe he was 16 or younger?
Yeah, 16 to 20.
Oh.
Maybe like a tall, young kid.
Okay.
And he's crossing in the crosswalk and doing a dance and joking around. And I'm like, I'm making myself more aware of the situation when I see that. And I'm like, what's this guy doing?
And your kids are noticing it too, right?
They're noticing. They're like, Mom, what's happening there? I was like, I don't know. And then he takes his drink and he throws it up into the air in the middle of the intersection, and it spills everywhere. And then he leaves the trash right there in the intersection and keeps walking. And it was a gut instinct. I didn't have that moment in my head that says, maybe you shouldn't do this. I rolled down the window. I was like, hey, your mama is not going to be very proud of your behavior. You need to go pick that up. My kids were like, duck and cover. They're like hiding under the seat. So they're like, no, Mom. But that kid goes, yes, ma'am. And he turned back around and picked up that trash and walked. And my kids were horrified. They admitted, my son says, now, Mom, I agree that guy was wrong. And you should have said something. But it's just still really embarrassing.
I wish I was not in the car at the time.
Correct. I just wish for the love of humanity that I wasn't there.
But you know what? Your kids learned a good lesson that day that they themselves will hopefully do when they are older. Here's the problem.
I don't think, but that's not very loving. Like, does that make me a Karen? Does that make me a mean Karen?
No, I don't think so. No.
Christian that's not loving people.
No, I don't
judging
agree.
Somebody and pointing fingers.
Sometimes you have to do that. This kid was out of line.
Couldn't help myself.
He was doing something wrong, and somebody needed to step up and correct that young man. Otherwise, he walks through life thinking he can get away with that kind of stuff. And that's the problem with our society. Yeah. We don't have enough people like that are stepping up.
More Karens?
It's not Karens. No.
Okay.
Karens are something absolutely different. Karens are overly involved. They're nosy. They're a little bit too bossy. They overstep their bounds in situations that don't call for it. Okay. That situation called for it.
Well, they think they're called for.
What? They do, but they don't have the right perspective. I think everyone would agree. Anne said that in my situation, she would have approached the parents because I'm sure the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. What does that mean?
That means maybe what you were saying. I don't want to judge somebody else's parenting. Maybe that approach the parents. Maybe they were rowdy people, and I know. I agree, but that's you never know. Because I would be horrified if someone approached me and said that my kids weren't behaving properly. They get really in trouble.
Oh,
absolutely. I wouldn't like it, but I would want someone if I wasn't around. And my kids were behaving poorly, like that young man, like and putting. He was at risk. He was crossing an intersection.
Sure.
Doing something like that, damaging somebody else. I would want somebody else to step in and tell my kids.
And I think Anne also makes a great point that you were in Rockland. Okay. If you were in another part of town, that could have been dangerous. You don't know what he was on or how he could have reacted.
That's what my reaction post was. Why would you do that, Amanda? With your kids in the car?
Yeah, who knows what he would have been on. If it was me, I definitely would have done it as well.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. I just feel like there needs to be more people like that in our society that corrects that, because kids and adults both get away with that kind of stuff in public, and we don't have enough decorum and civic behavior in our society, and that's the problem.
This is why we need year-round school.
Yeah,
because there's just take the kid. There's I've noticed, especially where I live, it's a very walkable community, and there's just kids everywhere hanging out with nothing to do during the summer, and like please take them, put them back in school. year round, I will vote for it. I agree with what Laurel says. She says sometimes it takes a stranger to correct kids, not just their parents.
Right.
I've
agree.
done that before. I've said, like, I know my 15-year-old daughter, Emily, there's things that I need her to do and need her to learn, but she thinks I'm crazy. But she thinks one of my best friends is like the coolest mom on the planet.
Sure.
So I'm like, would you tell her this? Because she'll listen to you. So I've done that. Does it mean that I'm failing in parenting in some way? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I just know that she's a teenager, and no matter what I say, she's not going to believe me.
Right.
Right?
Well, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Sometimes an outside perspective is helpful, and essential, even with my kids.
Yeah.
You know, I want to do something with them, something fun, and they'll be nervous about it. But if their cousin comes over, Angelica, who's older than who's in her 20s, they're all about it. Oh, if Angelica's doing it, absolutely we'll go do it. We're not afraid at all.
What am I?
I'm like, hello, I'm your dad.
I know.
You think she cares more about your safety than I do?
I know.
Come on. And so they'll do it. So I don't know.
I agree, Laurel.
That's my perspective. I think sometimes you need to step in and say something.
So
I'm sorry.
How do we? The
Safely.
solution is, safely is. If the safety's involved, if this is someone's putting something at risk, then it's okay to step in, and there aren't really other parents around.
Right.
That you, as an adult in society, then that is okay to step in.
But I think what you did was okay too, though. No one was at risk of safety or anything, but holy cow.
He seemed to be at risk. But
just throwing stuff on the ground, that's not okay. He needs to, maybe he's going to walk through life for a long time and nobody is going to step in like you did to confront him.
He's
he
like,
needs
I'm
some
not
of
going to
that.
dance at a crosswalk and throw my cup anymore
Right,
because
exactly.
of that woman, that Karen in Rockland.
You never know. Like, hey, I'm out and about a lot. I got my eye on you, I think you have to do that. Now, a bigger question though, I've done talk shows with this debate because it's happened to me a number of times. Now, this is where it can get a little tricky.
Okay.
Where I've seen parents with kids, and maybe it's at the mall, or it happened one time with me at Disneyland, where parents are yelling at their kids and they're being borderline verbally abusive.
Ooh.
Do you step in those situations? That for me was like a real dilemma.
Yeah.
I
don't know if I'd have the guts because that person is angry.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd have the guts. Now,
but you want to defend the kids, though.
Somebody could have stepped in and interrupted me at church yesterday.
What did you do? At church at Bayside?
In the lobby. I went a little crazy. I wasn't loud, but I was so frustrated because I'm really struggling at getting my kids back in the habit of going to church.
Mm-hmm. Sure,
because
good.
it's been so long of them just being able to sleep in, watch it from TV, and they learned that habit, and it is a struggle. And so just to get them up and dressed and in the car, I'm already frustrated.
And is this like the 11:30 service, or is this
10:30?
Okay, 10:30. Woo! Trying to get them up to go to the 10:30 service. Oh my God!
I mean, they're 15, 12, and 11, and it was just a lot. And I was trying to it was like I was talking to myself, like, stay calm, like, breathe.
Right.
Okay, it's all right. Well, thanks we're ready.
Good.
That little
Good for
fake
you.
Happy mom voice that you have to put on sometimes. And then my son had said, Mom, can I get one of those Frappuccinos? Milkshakes, they're so good. I said, well, no, because we're not at church on time. Like, we need to get in there, and we're not going to wait for you to get in line and have them make the drink and be even later. You cannot get it. So then we go into the service, and then right before the sermon starts, he has to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, okay, all right, okay, go ahead and go. And then he doesn't come back. Like, how long? 10, 15 minutes, I'm like, okay, there's not a line in the bathroom here. So, because I knew he was probably up to something. So I leave, and don't you know, he had just bought that milkshake with his own money that he had in his pocket.
Wow.
And I was just done.
And you caught him. What was the expression on his face when he saw you?
As a clam. He's like,
he thought what he did was perfectly fine.
No, like, he knew that he had he was sneaky and he was almost like,
wow.
ha,
Oh my
ha.
gosh. That would have made me even more livid.
I was, but it's literally in front of God and everybody in the lobby at Bayside Adventure. And so I was like, I told you, I did the whole 2-point thing. I told you, like when you're
Sure.
trying to be,
Oh, yeah.
I told you no, and you disobeyed me. And I took the
You grabbed it
milkshake
out of his
and
hand.
I threw it in the trash.
Wow.
I went, boom.
Amanda, I am just so impressed by you
I
during this conversation.
I feel so bad and guilty but if anybody saw that, whoa, that mom just ripped that milkshake out of that kid's hand and put it in the trash. They might have thought that I was being over the top. Imagine if you didn't know the scenario and you see me go,
no, boom. I would have imagined that you had a very good reason for doing it.
Yeah,
I think so.
I hope that people...
I would have imagined it's in the middle of the service, so I would have drawn some conclusions, especially if right afterwards you walked sternly right back into that sanctuary, grabbing his ear. Get in here!
I didn't grab his ear.
But I think
I left him in the cafe.
This is
I
good
just walked
parenting. Whether it's your kids or somebody else's kids, this is good parenting. Mabel says never correct someone else's kids. I'm curious why, Mabel. I'm curious why you say that. I mean,
I respect that.
Yeah, we never want to step over the line. We want to respect other parents, right?
Because I know it is hard. My kids are acting up at church.
Right, exactly.
And the sermon was about parenting.
Yes.
I think that's what really, I was like, the preacher's talking about parenting,
right?
And you're making me do this.
And I think you never want to overstep your bounds and disrespect other people's parenting. Mm-hmm. However, mom and dad, when your kids' behavior is affecting other people, not just your own family, but it's affecting my kids, it's affecting other people, it's affecting society, whether it's littering on the street, that's having an effect on other people. And if you can't, I'm sorry, because I feel very passionate about this. If you can't control your own kids, if you can't parent to where your kids can behave well and you need some assistance, there are people like Amanda and I that will be happy to step in when it affects Amanda, when it affects I'm sorry, but when your kids, if you can't be responsible for your own kids, then other people will step in. Even law enforcement will do that. They will if your kids misbehave, law enforcement will come. It's just, I'm sorry, but if you need assistance in parenting, if your kids are out of control, like they were at the pool this weekend, and you're disrupting my family time, then I'm sorry, that calls for a situation where I have to step in, because I'm not going to allow your kids to do that. I'm sorry.
Exhausting.
It is. And I feel bad for them.
I feel bad for them. I'm absolutely exhausted by it at the moment. I love my kids so much.
But it's a marathon, not a sprint.
I feel like I'm at the worst part of the marathon when you want to
you're at
the beginning, you're like, oh, this is cool. You're like, you got your stride. You're like, this is cool. And then you're like, where do they say is the wall in the marathon where you just want to quit?
I don't know, because I don't do marathons for that reason.
They talk about that, though. I feel like that's where the teenage years of parenting, and you're just like, what's happening? I thought I was so prepared for this. And I keep going.
Yeah. You keep going, and remember,
I get you if you're there. I get you.
Remember that even though they're teenagers and they want to seem like they're adults, they're still kids.
Right. And I have to regularly remind them of that fact.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, even remind yourself of that fact. Remember that they're kids and that you're the adult, and just... I think, like you said, it's a marathon. And remember that lady who held up the sign and knocked over all those bikers. Sometimes that will happen, and you'll get smacked. Oh my gosh, where did that sign come from?
A church, really?
Right.
Well, we did redeem the day, though. I don't know if you've ever felt really bad about having to parent your kids. Like, he was upset. He's like, I spent $5 of my own money and you just threw it away, Mom.
Well, you disobeyed.
Yes.
It's a lesson.
So went through the day, and then I ended up going, and I know that art really calms them down, and it's like a nice thing, especially my 15-year-old. It was just a tough weekend. Mm-hmm. And So we went out and I got some canvases and some paint, and we set it up in the garage and put some music on, and we all just painted.
Nice.
And we had such a nice, and nobody had phones. Everybody had lost their phones. So, and we just all sat there.
That's great.
It was, and they had fun, and they feel really excited about their painting and to put it up on the wall.
That's cool.
So we did. I felt like it kind of redeemed the day when you do have a bad moment like that. But there's got to be a way to redeem the day.
Yes, for sure. There's
Not
always opportunities to redeem situations. Always. You know what's hilarious is I had a similar situation with Noah where I got upset with him at the house where he was not cleaning up, he was not listening, and I got upset with him, and I forget what I said, but he got emotional about it. He teared up. But then, and I felt bad. Oh my gosh, as parents, you feel bad when you get upset with your kids. Yeah. And so I redeemed it. Same situation. We got out the sketch pads, and he loves to draw, so we had a drawing session.
Something about that.
Something about doing art and drawing with your kids is very therapeutic. I agree.
Yep. I wonder if God feels that way when he's like, I told you not to do that, and you did it. Okay. All right. Come on.
Yeah.
You know what? It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Even right now, I'm feeling a little emotional about my boy. You know, I just feel, I hate when he gets that way, because he's such a sweet, emotional boy. He's 7 years old. He's going to be in the 2nd grade. And whenever I correct him for anything, he's very sensitive, and he gets emotional, and he gets teared up. It's the worst. We
want to go hug our kids right now.
We do. Even last night before I went to bed, he's on the top bunk, so I crawled up there and laid by him and just comfort him, because I want to make sure that he knows that I love him.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thanks for weighing in. Oh,
so
we got this. It's going to be a good week.
If you are with your kids and you notice Amanda and I around, watch out, everybody. You never know how we're going to react.
Or if you're saying, you never believe what I saw at church, please forgive me. And now you know the situation.
You don't have anything to be forgiven about. You did excellent.
Why is that cafe open while the service is going on anyway?
All right.
Have a fantastic day. Don't forget to listen at 7, noon, and 5 for your chance to win tickets to see the professional
bull rider.
That's going to be awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being part of the Fish family. We love you so much. It means so much to us.